Okay guys, today I'm going to teach you Target 5, which is simple and compound interest. And so there's two different formulas depending on which equation you want. The front side of this worksheet is simple and the back side is compound. So for the simple interest formula, you're going to use I equals PRT. And so all of this gets multiplied together right here. I stands for the interest, so it'll calculate how much interest you make. P stands for principal, R stands for rate, make sure you write it as a decimal, and T stands for time. Okay? And it's literally just plug things in the right spot in your calculator, it all gets multiplied together and it tells you the interest. So for example, I'm going to do number 1 and another one of the table so that you know how to do it. So if you invest $1,000 in a savings account, that earns 3% interest for 3 years. It says find the amount of simple interest. So if you see the word simple interest, that's how you would use this formula. And that you would earn at the end of 3 years. And so all you're going to do is say my interest is equal to the principal, that's my starting amount, which is 1,000, times 3%, but I have to write that as a decimal. So you could divide by 100 or move it twice. So 0.03 times how many years you're doing it for, which is 3 years. And so if you just type that whole thing into your calculator, it'll say $90. Make sure you add the dollar sign because it'll just say 90. So what that means is if I put $1,000 into a savings account and I get 3%, after 3 years I will have made $90. So part B says what is the total amount of money? Well, I started with 1,000 and I have $90 plus. So now what I have is $1,090 in my account. So the thing with simple interest is if you want to know how much money you now have, you have to add your principal plus your interest together to get your total. So let's take a look at this box. This is kind of how it's going to look at the target quiz. It'll give you these columns. Here's your P, here's your R, and here's your T, and this is what it should be equal to. So if I give you these first 3 boxes, you should be able to come up with the interest. Here is just workspace for you to write out what you're actually typing in, and then the last column you're going to get your balance, which is your principal plus your interest. So for the first one, I'm going to do this row right for you. I'm going to multiply my principal, which is $34,100, times my rate, which is 0.04, times my years, which is 3 years. Okay, so that's what I would want to see in the workspace so that I knew what you were typing in. And if you figure that out on your calculator, you should get 4,092. That's how much interest you make. So in this column over here, I want the principal plus the interest. So you need to add 34,100 plus 4,092 to get a total of your account is $38,192, and make sure you add the dollar symbol. Okay, so if you had $34,000, wouldn't that be nice? If you put that in a bank that gave you 4%, after 3 years you would have made $4,000 by doing nothing. Okay, now a little depressing, I will tell you that banks don't give you 4%. It's like 0.1%. It's really sad. So you get like nothing. All right, I'm going to try one more. I'm going to try this third one just because you'll notice I'm working backwards. You don't actually know what the principal is, and I gave you the I. So what you still need to do is put everything in the right spot, and it should work out okay. All right, so I'm actually going to set my principal, which is I don't know, so I'm going to call it P, times, I'm going to multiply my rate, which is 0.03, times 4, and I'm going to set that equal to my interest, which is 480. Okay, so notice you have to do a little bit of algebra, and you have to work backwards. So if I want to find my P, if all of this is getting multiplied together, what's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. So I'm going to divide by 0.03 and 4, and I'm going to divide by 0.03 and 4. Okay, so make sure you divide by 0.03 and then divide by 4 to find out what your principal is. You should get 4,000. And you can check it. You could take these first three numbers and really quickly multiply them. You should have it equal to 480. That's how you know you did it right. So always check it. It won't be hard. And then, so for this last column, I have to add my balances together. So I'm going to add 4,000 plus 480. And so I have a total of $4,480. So go ahead and pause the video and finish the rest of the front side before you watch the compound interest part. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the compound interest part. It's a totally different formula. You should notice that it looks very similar to last week when we had a times 1 plus r raised to the t. The only new part is you have this n. Okay, and so I'm going to explain what that means. Compounding means that a couple times throughout the year, it's going to stop and figure out my interest and add that onto my investment. Compounding is actually really awesome when you are investing money. As a consumer, if I owe someone money, I don't like it, but that's how people figure it out. Okay, so compound, this n, I gave you the box. It tells you what n should be. So this is the number of times that it's going to compound in a year. Okay, which basically means how many times throughout the year are we going to figure out the interest. With simple interest, it's just at the end. That's why we call it simple. Just at the end, how much interest did you make? Boom, done. With compound, this is more common, especially for paying bills and other things like that. And so your n depends on, we will always tell you what is compounding. So if we say compounding annually, you use n as 1. If we say semi-annually, that happens twice a year, so n is 2. If we say quarterly, that's every quarter. There's our 4 quarters in a year, so n is 4. And if we say monthly, that's the most common, you would say n is 12. Okay, and so you're just going to use this formula. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first one for you. If I want my principal is 2,000, compounded, my interest rate, and my time, I'm just going to plug everything into the right spot. So the amount that I'm going to have after 10 years is I'm going to take my principal, which is 2,000, and multiply it by 1 plus my rate. And as a decimal, it's 0.045 divided by n. Since n is quarterly, that means I'm going to use 4. This is going to happen 4 times throughout the year. This was plus. And then I'm going to raise it to the 4 times years. So 4 times 10, or in other words, just raise it to 40. So you're going to type that in exactly how you see it in your calculator. And it should just spit out an answer. And it's 3,128.75. Make sure you round to 2 decimal places. Okay. Now what's different about simple interest is this is the amount of money I now have, not necessarily my interest. Okay. So I started with 2,000. I would have to subtract to figure out how much I actually made. Okay. This is like, I don't have to add anything. This is my total amount in my bank account. Okay. So you should be able to do the rest of this worksheet. And hopefully, if you have any questions, let me know.